Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I am John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic for you today with various different submissions. Let's do it. What was the most intense moment of your life? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. 2.5 years ago, I woke up halfway on my way to work with blurry sight and an immobile body. I assume it was on a sidewalk. I remember I wondered if I had died, but quickly shifted to a theory of suddenly gotten drunk on a Tuesday morning. But that didn't make any sense. Couldn't grasp what was going on, really. Suddenly, an older man rushed to me and asked me if I was okay. I said, yeah. He told me to lie still, looked concerned. An ambulance came and took me to the nearest ER, about 1 kilometer down the road. It was a stroke. Still puts me off a bit when I think about it. Occasional aphasia, but pretty much fine now. Driving to work one morning, icky, rainy day, lots of highway traffic. I assume a car hydroplaned in front of me, but it was far enough ahead that I couldn't tell exactly what happened. Took out several other cars with him. Highway was basically completely blocked. I was essentially the first car to pull up on the wreck, and one of the more badly damaged cars was already on fire. Myself and a couple strangers run up to the car and realize his door's jammed. One of the guys starts kicking the window. I'm not sure how much time has passed, probably not much, but you can feel the heat, and making eye contact with this dude, you can see the fear in his eyes. I ran to the passenger side, and as I'm pulling on the handle, the driver is kicking on the door from the inside. It popped open enough that I was able to grab a portion of the door itself, and we were able to pull it open and pull him out. I went to work, but I shook for hours from the adrenaline. My ancient used car randomly decided to stop working while I was doing about 70 miles per hour on the freeway. I skidded out, couldn't gain control of the skid, and slammed right into a metal guardrail. I crashed through the guardrail, flew off the side of the freeway, and impaled my car halfway through a tree. I was perfectly fine afterwards, but my car was a smoking wreck. It was virtually unrecognizable as an automobile. It was so messed up. But I was okay, not a scratch on my body. The moment my car spun out of control and I knew I was going over the edge at that speed, I assumed I was going to die. I gripped the wheel, closed my eyes, and made my peace with the universe. For some reason, the universe decided it wasn't done with me. I was shocked to open my eyes and find myself alive and unharmed, truly shocked. I thought for sure I was going to die. To this day, I'm always a little bit shook whenever I drive past that section of freeway. For years, you could see the skid marks on the road. They cleared them off eventually, but it took a long-ass time. Yeah, that's pretty intense. And unscratched. Pretty wild. Guess I'm not done with this world yet. Took 4 9mm rounds to the chest while delivering pizza. Was delivering to a party, and some kids jumped out and pointed a gun at me. When I first saw the gun, I thought it was some kids trying to prank me with a BB gun or something. I heard 4 loud bangs. Next thing I know, I was on the ground, and I felt them tugging on my keys that I had clipped to a belt loop. I remember one of them actually crying, and I remember him saying sorry over and over. Don't know how long I was there, but that party I was supposed to deliver to emptied out, and I remember hearing a lot of crying and screaming. I just remember some guy saying, "Don't close your eyes, dude, stay with me." Ambulance got there and picked me up, and from there, it was going in and out. Felt like I was just a passenger in my own body. The kids who mugged me and stole my car got picked up like 20 minutes later at a gas station, trying to use my card to fill the car. They all ended up going away for several years, and I got 4 scars that raise eyebrows every time I go to the beach. Saving a woman from drowning, we were river tubing in a river that was way more aggressive than normal. Long story short, a woman got dumped off her tube and pinned under a log next to me. I had to bail on my tube and fight to get her and pull her up. She was under for a few minutes. I was shaking for hours. 2 teenagers died there the next day. Moral of the story, if you're going river tubing and the tubing company that normally runs there isn't operating, it's probably because it's unsafe. My first code blue, where a patient's heart has stopped and we never need to do CPR. I've been to so many of these now in my career, but I remember everything from my first one. I was the first person there. I was right outside the room when it was called, so I was the first person to do chest compressions. The patient was a tiny 90-year-old lady, and I had to shatter her rib cage to pump her heart. I can still remember the feeling and the sound. She didn't make it. I remember very clearly talking to the family, telling them that their mother had passed away. I grew up poor and was relentlessly bullied throughout my childhood by my parents, brother, friends, and peers. My mom wanted me to be completely dependent on her. My first real boyfriend a'd me and then proceeded to cheat on me for the next several years of our relationship. I clawed my way toward finding a voice, confidence, stable income, and a home away from my parents. The biggest, best thing for me was when I finally saved up for my own car. I started traveling, and it was glorious. One of the nicest guys in the world, who is now my husband, invited me to visit him. We met in college, but kept in touch. He lived like 3 hours away. We'd both been in relationships when we met, but I had quietly thought he'd been the bee's knees for years. We were going to end up staying over at a place 2 of his friends were renting, and rather than have me drive straight there through some unmarked back roads, I was shy around strangers and extremely geographically challenged. He suggested that we all meet up at a bar after his friends were getting out of work. Well, I got there early, as I am typically wont to do, and they ended up running late. One of the friends was there, but we'd never been introduced, so yeah. I should have known I was not in the best area when they refused to make me a Long Island iced tea at the bar, but I got a gin and tonic, downed that, and then went outside for a smoke. I sat down and put my purse between my legs. My heart was hammering in my chest, but I was on cloud 9. Freedom tasted so sweet. I could have cried. While I sat there taking drags off of my cigarette, I saw a guy dropping off who I can only assume was his girlfriend a few doors down. I smiled and he walked past me to the corner of the block. He stopped, then turned around and started walking toward her place again. I assumed he forgot something. He forgot to steal my purse, apparently. He took off running. My car keys were in there. Rest of my world aside, like money, credit cards, phone, etc., which meant to me that my freedom was in there. I kicked off the pumps I was wearing and tore ass down the road after him. I told him he could have everything in there if he just tossed the keys out. I only had one set. Of course, he didn't. Long story short, I told him he was effed at that point, and I chased him for about a mile while screaming fire and R before the cops showed up, and he got tackled and handcuffed. It was the dumbest thing I had or have ever done. The cop chastised me, my feet were bloody, and that guy had a knife in his pocket. I got lucky. I just couldn't effing fail when I'd barely just started living. As a teen, 5 of us in a Ford Tempo at 1 a.m. going 65 miles per hour straight into a guardrail. Over 30 years later, this still wakes me up every couple nights. Car knocked 6 support posts out of the ground. I was sitting shotgun and seatbelted. Thought driver was not. The driver was flicking his headlights on and off as we came down the off-ramp. Eventually had to go left or right, but we'd mistakenly taken the wrong exit. Thought it was a 4-way stop. He flicks the headlights back on, and we are 2 to 3 feet away from the guardrail. No time to brake. And wham! Driver bent the steering wheel into the dashboard with his hands. He should be dead. Sitting shotgun, I should be dead. The kid behind the driver had the window shatter into his face, picked glass out of his cheeks for weeks. Middle in the back took a dome light to the face. No idea how he isn't dead. Kid behind me hit the back of my seat so hard and launched me forward. The impact left a bruise from the seatbelt across my chest for 4 weeks. Car looked like a corkscrew. We all got out and walked away. No hospitals, no cops involved. Just left the car and ran. The driver's father later proceeded to beat the living piss out of him. Decades later, I ran into the driver of a local bar, and he said he wished he'd died in that wreck. I bought him a beer. He said he had to make a phone call. He walked out the door. I've never seen him since. Yeah, that's pretty intense. And unscratched. Pretty wild. Guess they're not done with this world yet. My ex proposed to me, and then I found out a week later he was married to someone else the whole time. He was able to spend so much time with me because his wife was in the hospital dying from cancer, but she survived in the end. I screamed at him and physically threw him out of my apartment. He drove off and called me from the road, saying he took some pills to OD. I had to convince him that we were getting back together so he would come back to my place. I made him puke up the pills and eat food. He kept passing out, so I had to stay by his side, waking him up periodically all night to make sure he didn't die. The kicker, him out again in the morning and blocked his number. Intense because it was my first experience with death and still the grossest. Used to be in law enforcement. Got a call that stated the reporting party had gone to their sister's apartment to bring some cat food because the sister wasn't capable of going out in public due to some mental health issues. Sister wasn't opening the door, so the RP used her key to get inside. Should be noted, they hadn't talked in 2 weeks. Sister goes in and finds her sister collapsed and hanging off of the bed and calls 911. I go into the apartment and smell this smell that I can still recall so memorably today. To me, it smelled like sweet, rotten peaches with a hint of puke. Go in and see this woman who had OD'd on fentanyl, we later discovered, dangling over the side of her bed turning black. Her cat was next to her body, and its mouth had red and black goop all over it. The room was full of flies, and she had a radio playing some old Britney Spears stuff. Anyhow, looked at her blackened face with her mouth that used to be there, that's just now a black and red hole, then looked at her puffy eyes, saw a bunch of wriggling movement underneath them, and realized she had flies and maggots underneath her eyelids. And then I was now probably getting these flies that were produced within her eyeballs in my mouth. Cat got sent to a shelter, and now I'm sure someone owns a cat that they don't know had eaten their previous owner's corpse. All in all, good stuff, LMAO. Getting my black belt in karate. It was 16 hours over a weekend, lots of cardio on Saturday, push-ups, set-ups, kata, sparring, etc. Then on the Sunday, I was hammered hard by black belts who were resting in between. No rest for me though. Trying to remember all my katas, 15 in total, and being so tired and hurting. When I got my belt given to me, I cried. 10 years of solid training and fighting on the mat was all worth it. 3 months later, I got badly ill and was told I couldn't do karate ever again. Took 2 years to teach myself how to walk again with physiotherapy. Still one of my proudest moments though. Probably the birth of my most recent child. First off, I'm male, and I'm not really sure this counts as it's only afterwards that I think, holy shit. During the time I was very much head down, let's get this done. So my wife's in hospital 34 weeks pregnant having a routine appointment. She says she hasn't felt the baby move much recently. The guys at the hospital do an ultrasound and discover a placental abruption. During this, I'm at home with our 2-year-old, working from home, thanks COVID. I've got meetings all day while holding our son, and he's napping on me. I'm doing Zoom calls. Get a call from my wife who says, yeah, baby's coming out in an hour, get here. Call my mom and my niece. Niece comes to babysit while mom takes me to hospital as my wife drove in. Get there, get gowned up, hold my wife's hand as they do an emergency cesarean, and a code blue. She says to stay with the baby while she's sewn up. A few hours later, go find the car where my wife left it, order pizza, and drive home while my wife stays in hospital for a few days with baby. Baby is in fact in hospital for 2 weeks. Get to the pizza place as it's closing, and the lady there greets me and says, how was your day? To which I basically go through this. And yeah, she basically said, holy shit, and nearly gives me the pizza for free. But during this, as I say, I'm pretty damn calm. My wife was too. We just didn't have time to think. It was all so damn quick. And we just thought, well, we're in the best place for it. And we have to trust these people. The doctors joke that my wife was the rock star of emergency cesareans. Yeah, it's interesting when there's a scheduled C section how, the procedure is, methodical and it takes, anywhere from 20 to 45 minutes or however long it takes. But with the emergency, son was out in like 5 minutes. Incredible work that the doctors and nurses do in that type of work. So, was an Army medic for the first half of my career. Plenty of pucker factor 10 moments there. But what got me the most was when my last kiddo was born. There wasn't a terrible labor for my wife, but he was stubborn coming out. In hindsight, they probably should have popped the hatch and gone cesarean earlier, but he was stuck coming out. The docs ended up using one suction cup on his noggin to assist in getting him out. He wasn't making any noise and looked listless in the nurse's hands. I heard him say the APGAR score was 4. We locked eyes, and my heart just about stopped because I knew, and he knew I knew. They got him onto the little baby cart and started working on him. Fortunately, a few seconds later, which felt like hours, he started crying, fussing, and his color started normalizing. And he was up to a 10 on the APGAR scale. But for a moment there, I've been through some serious shit before, but none of it compared to those few seconds.